Greetings, Poke fans! Michael here, and the 7 Wonders of the Ancient World is a list of incredible man-made structures all within the area of the Mediterranean Sea, basically listed as ancient tourist destinations. However, the only one of the 7 that's still standing is the Great Pyramid of Giza. In recent history, though, more 7 Wonders of the World lists have been made, featuring both man-made and natural wonders, and in more areas than just the areas that ancient Greek tourists could get to. I thought it'd be fun to make a list of my own, and since I'm a Pokemon expert, I'm making 2 lists for the 7 Wonders of the Pokemon world. 1 list for man-made structures and 1 list for natural phenomenon. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, pretty please. And let's start with the 7 man-made wonders of the Pokemon world, listing them mostly in generational order. The first is Pseudopolis City. And yes, this means that there's no wonders in Kanto or Johto. They're just not that crazy. It's a lot of roads and towns. Pseudopolis City is a city off the eastern coast of the Hoenn region, built within a large crater. In the Gen 3 universe, this crater was formed by an ancient underwater volcano erupting, pushing itself out of the water and eventually filling with rainwater, thus making it a caldera. In the Gen 6 universe, the crater was formed by a meteorite impact. As time went along, the city of Pseudopolis was constructed along the cliffs of the interior of the caldera, aside from the gym and entrance to the Cave of Origin being at the bottom of the bowl. The buildings in Pseudopolis do not qualify it as a wonder of the world. After all, they're just buildings that are no more impressive than the buildings in all the other cities. What makes me qualify it as a wonder of the world is the fact that the city as a whole forces me to ask one big question. How the heck did they get any stuff in there? The only ways to get into and out of Pseudopolis City are over the top of it or under the water. Not on the water, under it. You have to dive deep enough to get through the little underwater cave entrance, then surface within the water-filled basin. This means that getting construction equipment and supplies into the caldera itself would have been incredibly difficult. Boats are useless. There's no room to land a plane. A submarine or a helicopter might work, but Pseudopolis was built a really long time ago, so those things didn't exist yet. The only way that makes sense to me to get stuff in there using real-world technology is using some kind of really impressive and complicated rope and pulley system along the outer cliffs to get to the top and then bringing the stuff down, which would have been insanely time-consuming and difficult. They also probably could have used some of the rock from the inside of the caldera itself, but not all of it. However, even that has limits, since 1, the relationship between people and Pokemon in the past is inconsistent and uncertain, and a single Pokemon can only transport so much. The amount of times a teleporting Alakazam or flying Salamence or wall-scaling Sceptile would have to take to get just a bit of supplies into the caldera would be enormous. I'm not saying the construction of Pseudopolis is impossible, I'm saying that it would have been so difficult that it makes it a wonder. The next man-made wonder of the Pokemon world is actually not far from the previous one. The Sky Pillar. The Sky Pillar is on an island a bit to the east of Pacifilog Town, constructed atop a small island. It is famous for being the place where you battle and catch Rayquaza. Go Team Sky! The Gen 3 version of Sky Pillar is pretty impressive on its own. It's a super tall tower built on a small island in ancient times. The time that had to be put into it, not to mention the impressive ancient engineering knowledge, could qualify it as a wonder outright. However, what catapults it into being a for certain wonder of the world in my eyes is its Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire version. Built by ancient Draconid people, the structure is now triangular, which I'm pretty sure is harder to construct. Maybe. It's been a while since I took any engineering classes. It's also possible people just don't make triangular buildings because there are less efficient use of space than square ones, but whatever. Also, while the Gen 3 version's height is unclear, the Oris version is tall enough to be above the clouds, which is insanely tall. There's also now an enormous mural spanning the entire height of the tower. depicting Primal Groudon and Kyogre's ancient clash, along with Rayquaza quelling them and Mega evolving for the first time. Not only is the art itself impressive, but it's one continuous painting spanning the entire height of a massive skyscraper. That could not have been easy or safe to accomplish. And as a cherry on top, a legendary Pokemon found it impressive enough to select it as its resting ground. That easily makes it a wonder of the world. The next wonder is from the Unova region. Sorry, Sinnoh fans, but don't worry, you get a wonder in the natural list. And is also a dragon-related tall structure. The Dragon Spiral Tower. Dragon Spiral Tower is impressive for a lot of the same reasons as Sky Pillar. It's ancient, the oldest structure in the Unova region, super tall, tall enough to be above the clouds, and still standing after who knows how many hundreds or thousands of years. However, I would argue it's more impressive than Sky Pillar because of its interior. In other words, how the heck did they build this? The interior of much of Dragon Spiral Tower is actually hollow, with the paths a person can walk upon being thin platforms supported by incredibly tall columns in the center. The thin platforms made of hard rock or brick absolutely should have crumbled under their own weight long ago, so the fact that they're still intact is incredible. Additionally, the construction process had to have been darn near impossible. How did they lift these solid brick things so high and keep them standing when attached at such small contact points? Also, how did they build all of this with the space limitations of the cylindrical walls of the tower? Did they construct all this and then build the walls around it? It's mind-boggling to think about. And how are the central columns even supported? So many of them look like they don't contact the wall at all, which means they have to be insanely tall and skinny. But even then, some of them don't look like they're attached to anything at all and are floating. The Dragon Spiral Tower is a miracle of engineering, and I mean that literally. It seems to defy the laws of physics. The next wonder is in the Kalos region, the Anistar Sundial. The enormous pink crystalline structure supposedly originated from either outer space or a mythical Pokemon, emits some kind of mega evolution energy, and cannot be broken even by the most modern scientific techniques. That is obviously incredible, and these insane features of the crystalline structure qualify it as a wonder of the world for the natural list. However, I'm putting it on the man-made list because people have modified it. When the Sundial landed on the Pokemon Earth, there is no way it landed in the perfect upright position to function as a sundial. There is no way it came with the golden rings in front of it that spin and release sparkles when it becomes 8 p.m. People figured out how to move and orient the enormous crystal structure and harness the energy of it to create a beautiful, wondrous display that happens just once a day. Its existence and properties are a wonder, but the fact that people somehow moved it and did something really crazy with it makes it a wonder as well. Regardless of which list you think it belongs on, the Anistar Sundial is absolutely a wonder of the world. The next wonder is in Alola, the altar of the sun, or moon, depending on the version. This absolutely massive structure was constructed by ancients deep within the vast Pony Canyon. It is incredibly tall, both the staircase part of it and the sculpting up on the wall, a wall they might have had to flatten to build upon. Its location is not easy to access either, like many of the wonders discussed so far, so actually getting equipment and materials to build there makes it even more impressive of a task. Also, when exposed to fancy Ultra Flute energy, the emblem on the wall opens up, but the pie segments that expand outward seem to disappear into thin air, since they seem too big to fit into the border area of the emblem. But there's more to it than just the physical structure, which is already impressive enough on its own. What makes this absolutely crazy is the plumbing. 2 perfectly flowing trickles of water emanate from the top of the circular emblem on the above wall, which then flow downward without spilling forward into the flat area below. Additionally, that part of the canyon is very arid, so it's not like they have an endless source right next to it that they're getting this water from. The closest water source is that little pond at the front of the canyon, so they're either routing that water all the way through the canyon, or they got a certain amount a long time ago and then have been perfectly recycling it for a really long time. The plumbing is incredible, but then it gets even more incredible when you realize that it is still functioning after hundreds or thousands of years. Plumbing is not really known to last that long, so that's insane. The altar of the sun/moon is absolutely a wonder of all kinds of engineering. All of them, maybe, except electrical. Well, maybe. We don't know. Next, we move on to Galar, where the next wonder is Hammerlock Castle. The castle and associated walls were built in the Middle Ages, implied to be several hundred years in the past, like the Middle Ages in the real world. Many castles in the real world were built during the same period, but Hammerlock Castle blows all of those out of the water. First off, it is enormous. The entire city appears to be connected to the original construction of the castle and associated walls, and it all still looks in excellent condition after hundreds of years. I'm not positive, but I think it might be taller than any real-world castle, so it's already incredibly impressive. However, they then decided to step it up a notch even past that by putting on these things. These appendages are meant to represent dragon wings, but they are so absurdly large and serve seemingly no purpose aside from decoration. But regardless of their purpose, I don't even understand the physics of them. The connecting columns are holding such an incredible torsional load due to how far the prongs of the wings are stretching out. So I don't know how they don't just snap off. Plus, how did they build it? This thing is crazy and was built in the Middle Ages. How? And as an added bonus, they fit in a whole power plant beneath it without screwing up the castle. Aside from when they did the whole story thing and they blew up the top, but they'll fix it, whatever. Hammerlock Castle is truly a wonder, absolutely one of the man-made wonders of the Pokemon world. The final man-made wonder of the Pokemon world is quite a bit different from the other ones I've discussed so far. The first reason for that is that it's a recent construction. All the other ones I've discussed so far were built long ago in the past, whereas this one was built during the events of a Pokemon game. The second reason is that it's not a main series location. The wonder is Rogam Tower. Rogam Tower is a coliseum in the Ore region constructed during the events of Pokemon Coliseum, the spin-off game on the GameCube. I have decided that features of the Ore region are fair candidates for wonders of the Pokemon world because you can trade Pokemon between Gen 3 mainline games and the GameCube Ore games, which to me implies they're within the same universe. This does mean that Rogam Tower is a Gen 3 location, which means I didn't fully go in generational order, but I said mostly generational order. I just wanted to save this one for last because it's a unique one. Rogam Tower is a large coliseum with a large battlefield, stands for fans, and some massive towers attached to it that appear to be mainly just decorative. It is the site of the climax of the main story of Pokemon Coliseum and is a really impressive construction. But what takes it from impressive to a wonder of the world is the fact that the whole thing is held up by some sticks. The whole battlefield, stands, and frickin' city is kept off the ground by a few curved thin metal beams and a weirdly inefficient elevator that can only elevate one person at a time. Seriously, how did they get all those other people in there for the stands? There's one elevator, one person, that'd take hours. Rogam Tower looks impossible, but is standing right there. That makes it a wonder of the world easily, and might mean it was constructed by engineers who are actually gods in disguise. I don't know. So the 7 man-made wonders of the Pokemon world are Pseudopolis City, Sky Pillar, Dragon Spiral Tower, the Anistar Sundial, the Altar of the Sun/Moon, Hammerlock Castle, and Rogam Tower. I also wanted to cover some honorable mentions that I thought were really impressive, but not quite as impressive as the 7 that made the final list. Those are Spear Pillar, Sky Arrow Bridge, the Tower of Mastery, Ether Paradise, Mount Battle's Flying Platforms, and Citadark Isle. But now we move on to the 7 natural wonders of the Pokemon world, meaning they have to be natural features like caves or mountains or trees or whatever, not constructed by humans. I will once again go in generational order, and the first one is Seafloor Cavern. Yes, this once again means there are no wonders in Kanto and Johto. They were Gen 1 and Gen 2, guys. The graphics were basic. There's not really anything crazy in them. The Seafloor Cavern is an underwater cavern in the ocean of the Hoenn region. housing Groudon or Kyogre deep within it, depending on the version. Underwater caverns certainly exist in the real world, but not like this to my knowledge. The Seafloor Cavern is actually not full of water, despite its entrance being under the ocean. All the underwater caverns I could find with my research are full of water, except for maybe a few where they have some small pockets. But those small pockets of air are not breathable air because you can't replenish the oxygen in them. The air in the Seafloor Cavern is breathable, which is insane. I believe a cave like this is unheard of in the real world and unheard of almost everywhere else in the Pokemon world. There is another cave just like it in Hoenn, the Sealed Chamber, so Sealed Chamber is an honorable mention. I just made Seafloor Cavern the main wonder of the world because it's a lot bigger. The next wonder is the defining feature of the Sinnoh region, Mount Coronet. There are a lot of mountains in the Pokemon world, but none as vast as Mount Coronet. It's not really possible to measure if it's the tallest in all the Pokemon world, but it is most certainly the largest in total mass. This mountain divides an entire region in half, and while some Sinnoh maps make it seem like there are multiple mountains, when inside the caverns, it's always designated as Mount Coronet. That means the one mountain dwarfs the whole region. Also, I know I said we can't know for sure if it's the tallest mountain, but it might be. Look at how tall it looks in the Legends Arceus trailer. It is insanely tall. I think of Mount Coronet as the Pokemon world's equivalent of Mount Everest. And Mount Everest is on CNN's list of the 7 natural wonders of the real world. So there you go. The next wonder is the Giant Chasm. This feature in the northeast of Unova is an enormous impact crater that has grown a forest in the many years since the impact, aptly named Crater Forest. This crater is a wonder to me because of the sheer size of it, hence the name Giant Chasm. It's large enough to have an entire forest in it, a forest I believe could be considered the largest in all of Pokemon. Also, the crater itself is a testament to the resilience of the Pokemon world. It's an enormous crater. That impact had to do a ton of damage, not just to the surrounding area, but potentially the region as a whole and even past that. The fact that the Pokemon world bounced back from such a severe impact, to me, makes it all the more a wonder. The next natural wonder is also in the Unova region, Chargestone Cave. This cave in the west of Unova has an absurd magnetic field. Lots of places in the Pokemon world have the magnetic field necessary to evolve Magneton and Nosepass, but Chargestone's is so strong that rocks float. Let me repeat that. Rocks float. There is so much magnetism and electricity pulsing through this cave that the stones are glowing, bolts leap from the rocks and the floor, and objects that should not be able to float are floating right in front of you. It is a spectacular feature, so spectacular that it could not exist in the real world, but not just that, it appears to not be possible to exist anywhere else in the Pokemon world. The next wonder is in Kalos, the Winding Woods. The Winding Woods is another name for Route 20 in the southern part of the Kalos region that eventually leads to the Pokemon Village. What makes this seemingly normal location special is that it changes. It is not a linear path. Selecting the wrong path spits you back to the start of it, and it can loop you back to the same area, which is impossible under the normal laws of physics. There are certain warp panels in the Pokemon world that can change which destination warp panel it sends you to, but those are man-made. The code could be rerouting the player depending on the circumstances. The Winding Woods is just a forest. How is it changing where you go? Like, that's crazy. How is it possible? It really makes you wonder. Also, I should note that the Lost Cave, which is a cave north of 5 Island and the Sevi Islands, can do a similar thing. If you choose the wrong door, it spits you back to the front. I just decided to make Winding Woods the main wonder entry because I've talked about a lot of caves and the natural wonders so far, so I wanted some variety. Next, we move on to the Alola region, where the next wonder is Vast Pony Canyon. Yep, There's a man-made wonder within a natural wonder, but that's allowed. Vast Pony Canyon is enormous, featuring a large canyon itself, a huge network of caves, and of course the huge area surrounding the altar deep within. It's like the Pokemon World equivalent of the Grand Canyon, which, like Mount Everest, is on that list of natural wonders that CNN made. It's a wonder not just because of the feature itself though, but because it's unclear how it came to be. The Grand Canyon was formed by a river flowing through it, eroding away rock over the course of millions of years. Vast Pony Canyon doesn't appear to have a river within it, unless that river dried. I suppose it could have been formed by a fault line, partially breaking the land apart, but it's impossible to know. The Vast Pony Canyon is beautiful and absolutely a natural wonder. And the final natural wonder of the Pokemon world is actually not far from Vast Pony Canyon, that being the Battle Tree. Now, I'm not talking about the platforms that people built alongside it, I'm talking about the tree itself. It is enormous. Just take a look at this screenshot here. Look how huge the trunk looks compared to the player, and the player is standing far away from it. Up close, its trunk is basically just a wall. It is hard to comprehend how wide it is, easily dwarfing the largest trees in the world. As for its height, I know the maps of Alola aren't precisely to scale, but even so, look at the battle tree on the map of Pony Island. It's as tall as the top of the altar of the sun/moon, which as we know, is super freaking tall. Dynatree in the Crown Tundra and White Tree Hollow in White Forest are also very impressively sized trees, but based on how big their trunks are compared to the player, I don't think they hold a candle to the Battle Tree. So in summary, the 7 natural wonders of the Pokemon world are Seafloor Cavern, Mount Coronet, the Giant Chasm, Chargestone Cave, the Winding Woods, Vast Pony Canyon, and the Battle Tree. The honorable mentions are the previously mentioned Sealed Chamber and Lost Cave, along with the Reflection Cave, Stark Mountain, Mount Battle, and Meteor Falls. Thanks so much for watching, and an extra special thanks to my patrons over on Patreon who are helping support my channel independent of fluctuating YouTube ad rates. If you want to help support me in the same way, the link is in the description below. Also, if you want to check out some more of my fun Pokemon content, I recommend these videos here. All right, that's all I have for now, so until next time, Pokefans, gotta catch them all.